Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, Jayden.reads. So I'm going to be jumping on the bandwagon a little late because I haven't made a video in like forever, once again, but I want to talk about my 2019 reading year since it's now 2020. I decided that for this video, I would do, and also sorry if I sound kind of weird, I'm a little sick, so I know I don't sound totally normal. But anyway, I decided that I would talk about the 5 worst books that I read in 2019 and the 5 best books that I read in 2019. And I just want to say that, like, before I start anything, that I'm really grateful for BookTube and for all of the booktubers that I've watched up to this point, because if it weren't for you guys, then I probably still wouldn't be reading as much. I read a lot when I was younger, like I was reading all the time, and then I think a lot of us fall into this hole, but like high school and college hit and it was like, wow, I have no time to read ever, and so I never do. But when I discovered BookTube, it brought back that desire to read, and it really motivated me to start reading again. And so I'm really glad that I started reading again, and also that I started this channel, because this channel has also been a really big motivator for me to read. So if it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be here today. That's my little grateful spiel, so let's get into the books. I'm going to start with the worst books of 2019 so that we can end on a high note. And I put these in an ordered list from 1 to 5, and I would say they're fairly accurate of like what my favorite versus my least favorite things were. Like 1's gonna be the best or the worst, and then 5's gonna be, you know, like still good or still bad, but not quite as bad or good as the top one. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'll try to go in that order. They're not always going to be exactly ranked perfectly, but I did my very best. So here we go, getting into the books that I did not like from 2019. So coming in at number 5 is The Lantern's Ember, and I have it right here on my shelf, if you can see. But yeah, it's The Lantern's Ember by Colleen Hawk. Every time I talk about this book on my channel, I never know how to say her last name. This is a book that I actually bought for myself, obviously, around Halloween time, because I love Halloween. It's like my favorite season, and it seemed like the perfect Halloween book. And the premise of this book is kind of that it's explaining the legend of Sleepy Hollow. And so it takes all of these different like spooky Halloween elements and combines them to make the story of Sleepy Hollow make sense, but it made no sense. Like, I had the hardest time reading it because I was bored and because I was like, I honestly don't know what's going on. Like, to me, it felt like the author created this entire fantastical world and then didn't really explain any of it and didn't really explain the plot, and the characters weren't likable, and I don't know. It was a really disappointing read, and I'm really sad that I bought it because everything about it seemed perfect for me. And I really like holidays. I really love celebrating holidays. And so I really want to have a book like a Valentine's Day book or Christmas book or Halloween book or things like that, where it's like every Halloween, I know that I can get ready for Halloween by reading a Halloween book, right? And so I really thought that Lantern's Ember would be that for me, which is why I was so confident and I bought it. And it completely fell short for me. So that was a really big disappointment. Coming in at number 4 is A Truly Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. And I talked about this video in my like summer reading wrap-up video, I think. But this is the first book, I think, the first official book that I ever read because of BookTube, because everybody was talking about it, and I hated it. I thought it was so boring and just lacking in so many areas, but a lot of people on BookTube like it. And so if it sounds interesting to you, I would say give it a try, but I really didn't like it. And just really quick, the premise of A Truly Remarkable Thing. One day this girl is like walking home from work and it's really late, and she stumbles upon this weird robot looking thing. She lives in New York and it hasn't been there before. She's like walked the same road many times, and it's just like this weird metal space robot thing, I guess. She takes a video with it, like she calls her friend because he's a videographer, and she's like, let's take a video of this and put it on YouTube and see like if people know what this is. And so they do. It turns out that these robots have been popping up all over the world in various locations, and they just popped up overnight. It's this really weird story that's supposed to be this big like metaphor or analogy thing about, or even allegory, I guess, about fame. And I think it does a good job illustrating the point, I suppose, about the crazy things that fame can do to us, or how we can kind of become insta-famous now through YouTube or through Instagram or things like that, and kind of the culture that that's creating. So I think it was a good social commentary, but as far as the story goes, it was really boring. Okay, book number 3 is The Secret Life of Violet Grant. Violet Grant, not Violent Grant. Anyway, this is a book. I forgot who it's by, so sorry. But yeah, this is a book that I checked out from the library because I was really excited to read it because I was kind of in this like feminist historical fiction mode. And this one seemed really promising. Ooh, I think the author is Beatrice Williams. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's who it is if you want to look this book up. I don't even really remember the premise of this book because I read it in like July and I didn't even finish it. I definitely DNF'd this book because I was so disappointed in it. And I do talk more about this book in my summer reading wrap-up, I'm pretty sure. But I know it's something like there's this girl who meets this boy, and the girl, I think, wants to be a reporter, and she ends up finding information about her aunt who lived during World War II, and just like all these interesting things that her aunt did, and her aunt was actually this really renowned scientist, and all these things. So it had the makings of a really great story, and just being a little bit more along the feminist lines, but it was so boring. And the characters, I felt like, were so shallow, and the story was completely lacking. And for me, I wasn't getting enough information about her aunt to want to continue on. And so that book was a really big disappointment for me, not just because I didn't like that book, but because Beatrice Williams had written several other books that sounded really good to me and I wanted to check out. But because I was so disappointed in The Secret Life of Violet Grant, I made the decision not to look at any more Beatrice Williams work because I figured they would probably be really similar. So if any of you have read any Beatrice Williams, I'm pretty positive that's her name. If you read other books by her and you really liked them and you think I should give them a try, please let me know down below, and maybe I will, and give me a recommendation of a book that is good by her, because I would like to try again. Because as I said, like, some of her stories sound so interesting, but just that one really turned me off. So let me know if that book is just a fluke or if that book gets better or something. I don't know. Let me know if I should try her again. Coming in at number 2 is The Woman in Cabin 10. And I have an entire review on this book, and I'm pretty sure it's called Why You Maybe Shouldn't Read The Woman in Cabin 10. So you can tell from that I didn't really enjoy it. But there were so many problems with that book. One of the biggest for me being the portrayal of anxiety. But if you don't know, Woman in Cabin 10, it's written by Ruth Ware, and it's this like thriller mystery book where this girl, I just forgot her name, Laurie, her name's Laura, and she goes by Lo, I think, is also a journalist, and she gets asked to come on this exclusive cruise that will only fit about like 10 people or so, and she needs to write this article on it because she works for a travel magazine. And so they're trying to get advertisements, and so they have Lo come on the maiden voyage of this cruise. And through all of this, there's like some crazy circumstances, and Lo ends up either seeing or hearing, I can't remember, a body hit the water from the room right next to hers. And so she like runs to tell people that somebody has died, somebody's been thrown overboard, and nobody will believe her. And nobody listens to her, and everybody's blaming it on her anxiety and the fact that she takes anxiety medication. Anyway, and it turns into this really big mystery, and you're trying to figure out, like, is she an unreliable narrator? Did somebody really get murdered? Like, what was it that she heard? And it just spirals into all these different things. So this is on my list because it had a really interesting premise, and yeah, once again, just completely fell short of my expectations. It just wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't enjoyable. If you want a more in-depth review, then you can totally go check out my video. Yeah, I was just really disappointed. I even ended up reading another Ruth Ware last year because I'd heard so many good things about her, and I'd heard her being compared to Agatha Christie, and just that she had amazing mystery novels. And so I was like, okay, I've got to give her another chance. So I read The Death of Mrs. Westaway by her as well. And I wasn't impressed with that either. So kind of disappointed. Guess I'm not a big Ruth Ware fan. Okay, coming in at number 1 for the very worst book that I read in 2019. I don't know if anybody who's been following my channel for a while will be able to guess what this is, but if you guessed The Shining by Stephen King, you would be correct. Yeah, I mean, I hated that book. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, I don't have anything positive to say about it. Actually, no, I do have one positive thing to say. And that is that The Shining is meant to be a horror book, and it's meant to make you feel unsettled and uncomfortable, and it accomplished its goal. I was horrified, I was unsettled. So, congrats, Stephen King. You wrote a trashy novel, and yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it. If you don't know, The Shining is about this hotel called the Overlook Hotel, and I believe it's in Colorado. There's a family who needs to go stay there over winter. I like don't even want to give a synopsis because I hate this book so much I don't even feel like it's worth my time to talk about. Anyway, I'm sorry if that's your favorite book. Hotel, it's really nice, it's in the mountains, it snows really bad every winter, and so they can't have guests there, but they need to have a caretaker staying at the hotel. And this guy is a raging alcoholic. He's had a lot of problems. He just lost his job, but he's got a wife and a son, and he really needs a job. And so he applies to be this caretaker, and he gets the job, and they go up there. But the previous, I don't know if it's like the most immediate previous caretaker or just the last one to take his family up there with him. I don't know, not sure because the writing ain't clear. But last time a guy took his family up to the Overlook Hotel with him to do the caretaker job, he ended up murdering his family. And so that's kind of the precursor of like, oh, you can take your family up there if you want, but it might not be the safest thing for them. And then, you know, Jack, the main character, is like, it's fine. And then it's not fine. I completely dislike that book. I think that it is pornographic in its own right, and that's kind of a strong word for it. I think that some of Stephen King's other works, from what I've heard, are much worse in that area, but it was sexual in a way that was not comfortable for me. Not only that, the writing was very unclear. I honestly felt like I was reading the rough draft of a story that could have been really good. So that was also disappointing. I felt like the writing did not stay true to the characters. I felt like there wasn't proper character development. Unsatisfying. Yeah. Didn't like it. Number one worst. Bye-bye to The Shining. So anyway, now that we've gotten all of that bad talk over with, I want to talk about my top 5 favorite books of 2019 because I read some amazing books in the year of 2019. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm so glad that I got back into reading because I honestly had a blast with this year. I honestly can't talk. I honestly had a blast with it this year, and I'm really grateful for that. So coming in at number 5 for my favorite books of 2019 was The Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. I talked about this book in my summer reading wrap-up, so if you want more of an explanation about it, you can go look there. But this book, it follows a girl named Mariko, and Mariko is like a feudal Japanese princess type thing, and she's being sent to marry this guy, you know, unite the families, blah, blah, all that, like, normal stuff. Along the way, her caravan gets attacked by this group that I'm pretty sure is called the Black Hand, and they try to kill her, they try to assassinate her, and she is able to escape. And so after that, she's like, wow, I haven't ever really lived my life. I haven't stood up for myself. Because everybody thinks I'm dead, and I'm kind of in this weird, awkward situation. I want to try to live for myself. I want to have some freedom. But first, I want to go find these people who tried to kill me, and I want to kill them because I want to, like, get my revenge. And it turns into this amazing story that's really fun. It's just a great, fun fantasy with some steamy romance. But it's also really fun for me because I used to live in Japan. For my church, I was a volunteer where I went to Japan and I just helped people for 1.5 years. And so I really love Japan, and I really love getting to read about it in a fun, like, fantasy setting. And so this book was awesome for me. I would highly, highly recommend it. In fact, I loved it so much, I don't ever really bullet journal. I need to be better at it, but I actually made, like, this, I don't know, it just fell out. But I made this little Flame in the Mist bullet journal spread. And yeah, I mean, I'm not all that creative. I try to do, like, Sakura in the corner. But then I wrote down some of my favorite quotes. So let's see, I'll try to find a good one to share with you real quick. So a lot of this book not only talks about the fun, like, fantasy aspect, but it touches on feminism and the differences in the way that men and women are treated, which is something that I really love to read about. And so basically all the quotes I wrote in here had to do with that. But one of my favorites is a conversation between two women in the book. And it says, Mariko nudged the handle of her spoon with a bound fingertip. Are you ever angry you were born a woman? Yumi sat back on her heels and studied Mariko for a spell. I've never been angry to have been born a woman. There have been times that I've been angry at how the world treats us, but I see being a woman as a challenge I must fight. And I really like that. It's not what we're born into. It doesn't matter which sex we're born as. It doesn't matter where we're born or the color of our skin. We are all people. We are all just as important as each other. And so it's not about the fact that we're born women or anything like that that puts us beneath someone else. It is society that teaches men, that teaches people that it's okay to act as though others were their subordinates, and that we, as women or as anybody else, need to fight and have our voices be heard. Not that it's fair, not that we should have to fight, but that it is a battle that we can fight, I guess, and that we can stand up for ourselves and that we can be empowered in that way. I don't know. This isn't even that book, but I just loved it. You know, obviously, or I wouldn't have journaled about it. So coming in at number 4, this should be like no surprise for anybody, but another book that I loved in 2019 was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And I honestly never stopped talking about this book. Like, I say that in every single video because it always comes up. It's the first Agatha Christie that I've ever read, and I loved it. It's super fun. Agatha Christie writes cozy, well, she did write cozy mysteries, which is kind of like, if you can imagine, you know, it's raining outside, you've got a nice cup of tea, and you're sitting in a big comfy chair with a blanket wrapped around you. This is the perfect book for that scenario. And yes, it does involve murder and intrigue and all of those things, but it's very mild and it's very fun and mentally engaging. This book follows 10 different characters that are all asked to come to this island for various reasons. And they don't really know why they're being called. They just know that they're being called, and they go to this island. They're all invited by this person that they don't really know. And once they get to this island and there's no way to get away, this message comes over a gramophone, because this is set in, like, I don't know, the 30s or 40s or somewhere around there. But a message comes over this gramophone letting them know that whoever invited them to this house knows that they are all murderers and that they are all going to have to pay for their crimes. And so one by one, they start dying off. It's this big mystery to try to figure out what's going on, and it's super fun. Coming in at number 3 is a book that I haven't talked about on my channel yet, but I'm very excited to talk about more. I will be making a big video about it shortly, but that is The City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I read this book for the first time this year. I actually bought it with my birthday money. My birthday was in like November. I'm a really late bloomer when it comes to Cassandra Clare and the Shadowhunter universe. Growing up, I'd always heard that these books were really bad and that I wasn't allowed to read them because they were really bad. But once I got older, I was like, well, I can make my own decisions now, and so I'm going to read them because I've heard a lot of good things about them. And I'm really glad that I did, because they're not really bad. They're not bad at all. And also they're super fun and entertaining. And I know that for whatever reason, there's a lot of controversy about City of Bones. I mean, I do know about some of the controversial stuff around it, but I don't know why this book is so divisive and why so many people don't like it, because I honestly really enjoyed it. But once again, if you don't know, City of Bones is the first book in a series called The Mortal Instrument. And basically how this book starts is this girl, Clary, goes to a club with her best friend named Simon, and she ends up seeing these kids kill another kid in the club. And she freaks out and she screams, and she finds out she's the only person who can see what's going on. And so through a course of events, she comes to find out that she is what's called a shadow hunter, and that there are demons in the world, and that these shadow hunters are tasked with killing these demons. And the story just kind of takes off from there, and it's really fun. Like I said, a series that's like 6 parts, and so it's really entertaining, it's really fun. It's kind of like getting into the Harry Potter universe. I mean, the stories are completely different, but it's kind of that fun feel of spending a lot of time with these characters and getting to know them and love them, so I loved it. Speaking of Harry Potter, coming in at number 2, kind of a cheat, but I reread the good old trusty Harry Potter series this year, and I hadn't done that in forever, and whew, let me tell you, It was such a treat. I don't know. I didn't realize how much I missed Harry Potter and how much I missed those stories until I read them all again and just completely fell in love all over again. It was absolutely delightful to be able to reread these books. And if somehow you don't know what Harry Potter is about, Harry Potter is a 7-part series about a boy named Harry Potter. He has a lightning-shaped scar on his head because when he was a baby, this Dark Lord tried to kill him. He was unsuccessful. Harry Potter's the only person that this Dark Lord was ever unable to kill. Well, in that process of when the Dark Lord tried to kill Harry, Harry's parents were killed, and so then Harry was an orphan. He has to go live with his aunt and uncle, who are not magical folk. Oh yeah, by the way, they're all magical. But he had to go live with his aunt and uncle for a lot of years, for like 10 years, and they completely mistreated him and were super mean to him until one day he receives a letter telling him that he has been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And he's able to go to this incredible school, this school that in fact is featured on my sweatshirt, actually. Yeah, he's able to go to Hogwarts and have a magical education and just be a part of the best story that's ever been written. So if you haven't read Harry Potter, it's time. You need to pick it up. And then coming in at number 1, my very favorite book from all of 2019 is a book that deeply touched me and that taught me so much about human nature and about love and forgiveness and strength and courage and how to be a better person. And so I have to give the title of my reigning champion to The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. And once again, I have an entire full review on this book. It does include some spoilers, but I tell you when those spoilers are coming. So I would still check it out. But Alice Network is honestly one of the most impactful, amazing books that I've ever read in my life. The Alice Network is a story that follows 2 women, Charlie and Eve, and Charlie it takes place like right after World War II. So Charlie is a young girl who is pregnant and she is sent to Europe to get an abortion because Europe is like one of the only places that's doing abortions at this time. And Eve is a retired spy from World War I, and their paths converge and they set out on this journey together. And I know that that sounds like extremely generic, and it was a generic like intro, but for me it's one of those stories that is just so good that I don't want to like spoil anything. Not that I really would be if I told you more, but I just want you to read it and I want you to experience it and fall in love with it for yourself. Also, just know going into this book, there are a lot of triggers. Obviously, talk of war, talk of sexual assault, talk of some pretty big topics. It is so impactful and taught me so much. The biggest thing that comes to mind is the discussion around abortion. And I was able to learn a lot and to have my opinion influenced and changed by this book. And that is something that I love when a book can do. I know that wasn't a good explanation, but I can't say it enough. Please, 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 I am begging you, pick up the Alice Network. You will not regret it. If you do, I'm sorry, but I don't know how you can. That was my 2019 reading wrap-up. And as the title says, it was the best reading year and it was the worst reading year. But I think that kind of happens with every year. It's just the year that I got back into reading, and so it feels very polarizing for me. I loved it. I love all of you. I will try to make more videos. I know I keep saying that. I know I need to be better at it. It's just hard to work it into my schedule because I've got a lot of other things going on. But it's something that I love to do. It's something that I'm going to work on. But let me know down in the comments how your reading year went. I want to hear about your favorites, your least favorites, and what you thought about anything that I had to say. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching my video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!